Man, Diego Pavia has just sprinted back into the Heisman race after an insane performance against the Auburn Tigers.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the latest edition of the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcasting network out there. So, like I said, thanks for joining us. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So, download the app today. Now, speaking of today, on today's episode, we're going to talk about what we learned from this game. Essentially, the defense needs to, it may need some work. There may be some things that they have to fix and tinker with, but I'm telling you, finding guts is not one of those things. We're going to talk about how that's going to benefit them in the future, especially starting with this bye week, but then heading on to Kentucky and then ultimately Tennessee on the road. Eli Stowers is exploding at the right time. This offense is exploding at the right time. And just the dynamic nature of this offense, is it a fluke? Was it flow of the game? Or is this team really kind of developing into something that has an explosive element to it? We'll break that down. But first, the more and more I look at this thing, Diego Pavia, after the Texas game, I was like, well, you lose, you have a tough first three quarters and couldn't get much going, but your numbers look good. It's tough to really put Diego Pavia out of the Heisman race. And I'm going to talk about that as well. We're going to cover that on today's episode, how he's gotten himself back into the conversation, all that and more. And like I said, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, let's get into it, right? Shall we? Oh, my nose is itching. It's allergy season. Let's get into it, right? So what we're going to look at is I just can't help but be enamored with Diego Pavia and what he's done for this program. And the fact that his Heisman campaign was all but dead and gone. Guys had surpassed him. The Texas game wasn't really something that was a positive for him because you lose. And in a Heisman race, you have to put up numbers and you can't lose. And the college football playoff hopes were tabled at that point, and they were, you dang near have to be perfect. And then you get out to a 17-3 deficit against Auburn, and it's like, all right, that's going to be the nail. And even if they win this game, it might be the nail because it's going to be a struggle win at best. And boy, did it not happen that way at all. Diego Pavia, to the tune of 489 yards of total offense and 4 touchdowns later, we're talking about Diego Pavia in the Heisman race. Now, Fernando Mendoza did himself a lot of favors as well when you look at the Heisman talk. But it's tough to say that there are a ton of quarterbacks that are as valuable as Diego Pavia and that account for as much of the percentage of the offense that Diego Pavia accounts for his team. He does it on the ground. He does it through the air. He does it emotionally. Vanderbilt's sitting at 8-2. You take Diego Pavia off this team, I don't know what happens. I don't know that they're 8-2, and they're 8-2 for the first time since 1941. So continuing to break records there. So one of the takeaways is these are kind of what we're gonna talk about here. But Clark Lea had this to say about Diego Pavia, and he said it post game, and he said it, in the presser as well. He said, I feel like we're growing some here, which is exciting. And what is there to say about Diego Pavia? The guy took the game over. I've said it at this podium before, but in our minds, he's the best player in the country. We found a way to win the game for us tonight. I credit Tim Beck too, but Diego made it happen. And he's the best player in college football. And he's continuing to prove that because, you have nights like this where Auburn's a lot of things, but what they aren't is a bad defense. They're an elite defense, right? They may not be. I meant to say that the other way. They may not be a whole lot overall, but defensively they're really strong. And he did this against them. 25 of 33, 377 yards, 112 yards rushing on 18 carries, and accounted for 4 touchdowns. Now, I admit you have to look at stats when you look at the Heisman race. You just have to. I mean, it's a part of the deal, and it's a part of what they look at. But like Diego Pavia might be redefining what they look at, and I'm not saying he's necessarily a shoe-in to win. I think he's done enough to be in the conversation for sure. I think he's done enough so far, and if he continues it, enough to be invited to New York. Now, it's going to take for his numbers, and I think it's going to take for him to beat Kentucky and to beat Tennessee. Now, here's his numbers right here. Here's his season numbers so far, and I'd love to compare it with some other people, but here's his numbers. 216 to 306. He's 71% passer, almost 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. So he's still making good decisions, still taking care of the ball in the passing game. Rushing 135 carries for 725 yards and 8 touchdowns. Just think about if he's a 3,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rusher, think about what that means for where he is. Think about the impact of, hey, this guy not only did this in college football in the SEC, he did it at Vanderbilt, who traditionally is bottom of the barrel in the SEC. They're traditionally traditionally they're cellar dwellers. I mean, last year they made a bowl, but they weren't any real threat for anything. I mean, they went 6-6 in the regular season, and then won their bowl game against Georgia Tech. But like Vanderbilt before that was 2-10, 5-7, 2-10, and then like no better than 3-9. I think the last 10 years before that. For him to come in and do this unheralded, like it wasn't like he came in as some big time heralded recruit and all this. He came in from New Mexico State, unranked, unrecruited, had to go to JUCO, had to grind for everything he's got. Now, up to this point, and shout out to Andrew Allegretta for putting up these stats. I'm going to read them to you. There's nothing, I didn't make a graphic or anything, but this is stats over the last 2 games. So over the last 2 games of each of the Heisman candidates, Diego Pavia, 742 yards passing, 137 yards rushing, 8 total touchdowns, 0 picks. And I think he's had a couple of fumbles in there, unfortunately, but there's a couple turnovers there. Fernando Mendoza, 419 through the air, 44 on the ground, 4 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Julian Sayin, 619 through the air, 4 on the ground, 5 total touchdowns and a pick. Ty Simpson, 530 yards passing, 21 on the ground, 3 total touchdowns, no interceptions. He continues to be extremely he continues to be extremely efficient. And Marcel Reed, 423 yards passing, 137 on the ground, 6 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I don't know about fumbles. So those are the last 2 games, regardless of opponents. And I'm going to, as we continue to have these discussions, this is not the last time we're going to have this discussion. We'll start comparing. Like one thing I'll start doing, this is kind of an overview, just kind of why he's back in the race, but I'll start kind of comparing season stats up until that point with the other guys, with Mendoza, with Sayin, with Simpson, with Reed. I would take Diego Pavia over Reed. I would take Pavia maybe over Julian Sayin. I don't know. Julian Sayin is pretty good. They're different. They're different. So what Julian Sayin is doing for Ohio State works for them. I don't know that Julian Sayin would come to Vanderbilt and it would work for him. Diego Pavia is a grinder. I mean, he's earned every bit of it, and he deserves to be in the race. Unfortunately, he's 1-1 over those last 2 games. I think that's what's going to hurt him in the long run. But I mean, this performance right here just gutted it out, man. It was defense optional. It was overtime. I mean, they needed every time Vanderbilt needed a big drive, he was there to make that big drive. Once he got settled in about second quarter, I think the first quarter was they moved the ball. They moved the ball well. They just couldn't quite put it across the goal line. They got those 3 points early, but they just, they were continuing to move the ball. They just couldn't generate much. MK Young had a fumble that set up an Auburn field goal, but for the most part, they couldn't get much things going. And then right before half, they went down, scored, and then held Auburn to a field goal. It was 20-10 going into half, and then the offense just exploded coming out of the locker room. I mean, they went down 3 plays, I think, on the first series, went down and scored after holding Auburn to a 3-and-out. I mean, it was just electric. And then Auburn would answer back, and then Vanderbilt would answer back. Just when you thought, okay, Auburn answered back, okay, that was it. Because, like momentum's a fleeting thing. Momentum's kind of a weird thing where it's like, okay, you got it, then you don't. And no team really had momentum until right there at the end. Defense stood up, made a play, and said, okay, we got it. Bam, they grabbed it, right? When Auburn didn't get any points right there before the end of regulation, I knew Vandy was going to win it overtime. I just knew. I knew Diego Pavia was going to put the team on his back, score, and the defense was going to hold serve. And they did, because they had grabbed momentum, because Auburn had a chance. That was Auburn's chance. That was when they didn't do what they were supposed to do, which was what they've been doing all night, just moving up and down the field. When they couldn't move down the field with ease to set up a game-winning field goal, that's when I knew, okay, Vanderbilt had them right there, and that was it. Because you just gave up a 4th-and-1 turnover on downs. Crucial, where you could have kicked the go-ahead touchdown or the go-ahead field goal. I think something about this defense, they were just like, okay, we have to do it. We have to play on a whole nother level. And guys made plays. Guys made plays when they had to, and that's kind of what Diego Pavia does, emotionally for this team. They have each other's back. It's a mature team. We're going to talk more about that, right? So when we talk about takeaways, the offense exploded. Eli Stowers is exploding as a result. He's a future NFL player, maybe even a first-rounder. We're going to talk about the impact of this offense and their just absolute explosion of points, and just finding a whole new element to what they do. We're going to talk about all that next. First, it's Wayfair. The holiday season's right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long, up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. Now, I recently upgraded my living room. I got two of these little bucket chairs, right? And it just accented the room so great, man. And I got them for Wayfair. It's completely transformed the room. And honestly, I wouldn't go anywhere else, because I couldn't believe how fast everything shipped just in time for the holidays. And browsing through their site, it's easy to find pieces that actually fit my style, nothing generic, just quality designs that feel personal. And if you've ever hosted family for the holidays, you know how much of a difference a few new touches can make. And Wayfair just makes it that easy. So don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends on December 7th. Thank you for making Locked On Vandy your first listen, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network in America. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for making it happen. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy is a phenomenal place to go. Covers the entire league quite well, and just the whole family of SEC shows right here on the #1 sports podcasting network is absolutely phenomenal. You can't miss. You really can't miss. And one of these days, I'm going to join the Sunday reaction roundup show, whatever it's called. I'm gonna join that. I know it's on my channel, but I'm gonna join it here one of these Sundays. But anyway, just talking about takeaways. What did we learn from this game? Well, we learned that Diego Pavia's in the Heisman race, but what else did we learn here? Offense exploded again. It's the first team to put up more than its scoring average versus Auburn. 45 points, 544 yards of total offense. Man, they use tempo pass game, proving it can win in a variety of ways. That's probably the most important part. And they had 2 wide receivers over 100 and one right there, almost to 100 in Junior Sherrill. So, I mean, this offense, and honestly, they're finding new ways to win. 2 weeks ago against Missouri, they just had to grind it out and just take what they could get against a really good, long, big, fast defense in Missouri. Last week against Texas, they were forced to kind of play a different way, weren't quite used to it, but I think they realized how important that was. And it's been something that it looks like they've been trying to develop all year long, that element of their attack, and they just haven't been able to quite get the rhythm down with it or quite be able to connect on some of the shot plays and some of the downfield stuff. They kind of found a rhythm in the Texas game somewhere, and you could tell he probably made a few notes on his play sheet, probably made some notes in his little notebook to talk about it on Sunday with Coach Lea and Coach Kill. And they probably decided, hey, listen, we can be explosive. And we found something. And I think Diego Pavia agreed, and I think this offense agreed. And you saw what happened. Because Auburn wasn't going to let them possess the ball and run it down their throat and control the clock and everything that Vanderbilt wants to do. And Clark Lea even made an acknowledgement of this in the postgame presser. He said, hey, we had to do something that is uncharacteristic of us. We had to do something outside of our normal identity. And sometimes you have to do that. And you have to be comfortable doing it. That's the thing. Like occasionally you're going to get in a situation like that where I don't want to say fluke. Fluke's not the right word, but like you just have a night where you're on in that regard. Whether it's like, oh, you just have a night where your offensive line is just blocking really well. Like if you're Tennessee and your offensive line is just blocking really well and you're running really well and you're controlling the clock. You don't usually do that. You're usually up tempo, down the field. And the same for Vandy, but the flip. Like usually it's run, control the clock, and then throw a couple passes here, throw some screens there, and really just kind of work your way down the field. 12, 13, 14 play drives every single time you touch it. And they've been winning that way. Well, it came time to win a game through the air. And they did. Eli Stowers, 12 catches, 122 yards, didn't reach the end zone, but made a massive impact in all 12 of those catches, just sitting in open zones, getting, doing things that the new age of tight end does. He's that joker, hybrid, whatever you want to call him. He's not a true tight end. He can do a little true tight end stuff, but he's not a true tight end. And I think the NFL is not the NFL is kind of in a transitional mode when it comes to the tight end position because the traditional tight end is kind of like it's not dying, but it's like the roles are changing, and I think teams are starting to kind of go get those type of guys like Brock Bowers, Kyle Pitts, and what Denver wanted Evan Ingram to be, which he hasn't quite been yet. Like the Dallas Goederts, who are just these, they're receivers and they're tight ends, but they can do a lot of things. And I think Travis Kelce ultimately started that trend. Greg Olsen was, a guy that was an inline tight end that could do that, but you've never really had a guy that was just dynamic. And unfortunately, the Falcons haven't figured out a way to use Kyle Pitts because that guy could be an animal, but his impact's been minimal. But for Eli Stowers, just his impact for this team has been incredible. The routes that he's run, the things that he can do in a mismatch situation, things that he can do in the clutch, like a lot of his catches have come on third down. and third downs that turn into first downs. A lot of those catches have been those. So he's been, and even though his impact on the stat sheet was minimal in the beginning parts of the season, the passing game was minimal. They didn't have to. They didn't have to come to him a lot. Teams were double covering him. They were, teams were scheming for him. There was things within the game flow that just did not dictate getting the ball to Eli Stowers. And his impact was heavily felt there because other people were getting open as a result. They were able to hit some things in the run game as a result. They were able to do a lot of things. And Eli Stowers just kept going because he knew, just like I know, just like anybody knows, that it's going to eventually circle back around to where all of a sudden Eli Stowers is now a dominant force again. He's always been that way, but like the game flow just hasn't found him yet. It's found him now. And he's going to start getting across the goal line a couple of times as well. Probably a lot more frequently down the stretch, and maybe even in the playoffs if that's a thing. But this, the point is this offense being explosive and having that explosive element to it. Now I think there's a whole new avenue of things they can do. Like if they want to change tempo, they can. If they feel like they're getting bogged down, they can actually throw their way out of it. Junior Sherrill had a really nice day. Trey Richardson, 3 catches, 124 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he's lightning in a bottle. He's had big play after big play after big play. Cole Spence, his 1 catch for 4 yards and a touchdown was the biggest touchdown of the night. It was the winner. He came through in the clutch, and he had some really nice games right there in the middle of the season against LSU. And he had some, I think LSU was his best game, but he's had some really nice moments in the past game as well. And so, you just look at what these guys are doing. The backs are getting involved in the passing game as well. Like you're starting to get a more dynamic offense, and an offense that still wants to hold the ball, but is not just 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's not just run. And it's taking some pressure off of Pavia, and Pavia is thriving because of it. You can see he's comfortable, that he knew on Saturday he didn't have to win that game. He knew that he didn't have to make every single play. He said, just let me do my thing and we will win. He was confident. He was calm. He was poised. That's the reason why it worked, because he knew the other guys were going to have his back and they were going to make plays for him. And he knew he didn't have to do it all. And that's a freeing feeling. So I'm going to break this down way more throughout the course of this bye week about the offense and there's just a whole new element to it. And how is it going to look moving forward? Like, are they going to be this way? Are teams how are teams going to try to defend that? Like I'm going to break that down. But before we get out of here, I want to talk defense a little bit, because there's some concerns, but there's also some things that's like, okay, well, they'll figure it out eventually, because the things that are fixable. We're going to talk about and break down some defense next. Tell you what, my friends over at FanDuel are probably sad that I didn't end up betting the under. I kind of just forgot, and then I looked at the game flow and I was like, I'm not betting the under. And then I just for some reason didn't go back on Saturday, but usually I do. And I'm glad I didn't bet the under on that particular night, because I would have lost. But honestly, I love FanDuel. I love going back. I got some NFL bets in, some props. Didn't win, but it's always fun to do it. And also the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than, of course, FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets in the same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we are wrapping up here, right here on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the number one sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network. Can you believe that? And it's all because of you, right? Make sure you like, subscribe, follow at Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms or wherever you get your podcast, and YouTube, of course. Just go ahead and click that. Click all those buttons, right? It makes it free, keeps it free, and I get to deliver, and you get to, the drill. So, looking at our takeaways, what can we glean from this game? What did we learn from this game? We learned that the offense found an explosive element. We did learn that. We learned that Diego Pavia has sprinted. I mean, he was out of it. He's like, wait, sprinted right into that Heisman talk, right back into the race. He's right back in the thick of it. What else did we learn? Well, defense was shaky, but Auburn found its identity, and that's part of it. And when they were explosive, and they were explosive. And Vandy's defense got stops when it needed and made just enough plays to win. So ultimately what I'm saying is this. The defense has guts. That's always been true. That's always been true. Except for like the first half of the Texas game. They didn't really have any guts. They left their guts at home, I think, is what happened. But because they didn't want to tackle. They couldn't tackle. They didn't want to tackle. They just didn't even look like they wanted to be there, truthfully. But they figured some things out defensively. Now, they tackled a lot better on Saturday. The only problem is they weren't there to tackle in a lot of scenarios. When Ashton Daniels is running free for 20 yards before anyone comes into the picture. When there's a receiver and there's three guys surrounding him, if they're all 5 yards away from him, easy catch, right? The times where it's like, where is everybody? It's like, what do we like? It's catch after catch after catch. I mean, they were perfect on third down for almost I think they missed one third down in the entire first half. Like they were just, and part of this is Auburn's offense being really good. Like Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton are explosive receivers. Cobb was I thought Cobb had a great night running. He rushed for over 100 yards, obviously. They had more total yards, 563 total yards, and they were just racking it up. And some of it was scheme. First half, like it just didn't seem like Vanderbilt it didn't seem like Steve Gregory and Clark Lea were really in tune to what was happening. Why? Well, because Auburn's been absolutely putrid at offense up until this point. Now you got a different play caller, and it took them longer than I would have liked for them to kind of get in the groove of how Derek Nix was calling that game and how they were. And a lot of it was quick game. Ashton Daniels had really good timing, and they were making and granted, there was a few scenarios where drives were kept alive by an amazing catch by Cam Coleman, where there was one in particular where they were going to be off the field, and he makes his catch and he he gets his toe down just in time. With a fraction of an inch of space between his toe and the sideline. He wore dark cleats, and it helped him. If he had a spat on his cleats, if his cleats were white, he wouldn't have gotten that call, by the way. Because he wore dark cleats, they could make the call. And it was heavily guarded. I think it was, I can't remember if it was Martell Hyde or Mark Davis that was on him. I don't think you could have been any tighter on him. I don't think you could have guarded him any better. He just went up and made a play. Sometimes receivers do that. It was a great play. But for the most part, I thought this defense was subpar. They were below average. They made enough plays to not be bad. Down the stretch, they're going to have to be a little bit better than subpar, I think. Against Kentucky, Cutter Boley's a good quarterback. I don't think they're going to mount much, but this defense, I think, schematically has to figure out some things. Tennessee's explosive, and they're going to go up and down the field. And I don't know that you want to get your offense in a scenario to where it has to go up and down the field to keep up with Tennessee. And I don't know if you want to do that in Neyland Stadium. It's one thing doing it at home, at the crib. It's another doing it in that place. So defense is going to have to figure some things out. Like, how do you disrupt the rhythm? How do you stop these explosive receivers? How do you limit their yards. They tackled better, and I think Auburn had to earn more of the drives than I felt like they were going to. But it's just schematically, they just weren't there. They weren't communicating. Rush lanes were being compromised. I think people were just trying to make big plays on Ashton Daniels, and sometimes gap integrity broke down. Sometimes, there were a couple of missed tackles, great catches, great plays, timing throws that just, a combination of things for this defense. But upon further review, I don't think it was as bad as it looked out there for this defense. I mean, 38 points, it's not good. I can tell you. It's not good to give up 38 points and 563 yards. It's not good. But when you really break down to what it looks like, it's not quite as bad as it looks. And the offense obviously helped make that pill easier to swallow. But, again, these things are fixable. Scheme-wise, it's fixable. Ooh, speaking of fixable. But all of these things can happen. All of these things can be fixed. And that's the good thing. That's the good news. So am I as worried about this defense? No, I'm not. They'll figure it out. They've played two really good, dynamic, long, fast offenses. Auburn, what could have been for them? Those fans have got to be frustrated. I would be. I'm frustrated for them because that was fun to watch. That whole game was just fun. Both offenses moving up and down the field. And the thing is, it wasn't bad football for the consumer. It wasn't bad football. Like, Auburn didn't lose that game. Vanderbilt won that game. There's a difference, right? Like, if Auburn lost that game, it would have been like they made some stupid plays that caused them to lose that game. When I say Vanderbilt won that game, Vanderbilt did everything. They earned and won that game. They battled. They outlasted. They outdueled. They out-explosive. They did everything slightly better than Auburn, and they earned that game. So they won that game. Auburn did not lose that game. Now, on the record, it says they did, but Auburn, and I think it makes that win even better. I think it makes Vandy's win even better. The fact that they went out and won it and wasn't given this game. It wasn't given this game with some stupid call. It wasn't given this game with some stupid play call or stupid turnover or stupid something, that just said that, that kind of just takes the luster off the game. They went out and made it happen. They went out and made these plays happen. They defended well when it mattered, and they made plays. Resiliency, guts, fight, all of that comes in handy. Now you just tighten some things up over here, with coverage, continue to work on tackling, and I think this defense will get back to where it is and where it was. And that's the biggest thing. So overall, again, just to react, the atmosphere was electric, and that just, it's getting better at First Bank Stadium, and that's an amazing thing. Students showed out. There was more black and gold. It's starting to creep back into a home environment. It's starting to creep into a home environment for Vanderbilt. Just think about if that happens. Just think about if that same ever turns into a true home environment for Vanderbilt. We're getting there, right? And the best part is, and I'll leave you guys with this, the best part is this. Vanderbilt's finding different ways to win. And when you're in a playoff race, and when you're in a race, I don't want to say race, but when you're in the process of building a winner, of building a program that has a lot in front of them year in and year out, a competitive program within this conference, those are the foundational pieces you need to do to be able to do. You need to be able to win defensive slugfest. You need to be able to win shootouts. You need to be able to, hey, our defense sucks today. Offense, you got to be able to pick them up. Hey, our offense sucks today. Defense, you got to be able to pick them up. Or, hey, we just need 3 plays out of you, defense. Just go get it, right? So those are the type of things you need. And that just comes with maturity. And obviously they're a veteran team. They're a little bit more mature than the rest. But when you look at how this team is constructed. I think it's setting the tone for 26, 27, 28 down the road, right? And Clark Lea's in the right place. This team's going in the right direction. Got a bye week this week. Get well, get rested. Kentucky, Tennessee, finish strong. You go 10-2. I don't think Vanderbilt's ever won 10 games. So go and do it. You go 10-2, you're not guaranteed a playoff spot. It's not win and you're in. It's win, get some help, and you have a chance. But you got to get to 10-2 before any of that matters. And with that, until next time, we're going to continue to break all of this down throughout the course of the week and give you every ounce of Vanderbilt coverage. I might even talk a little basketball this week too, because they've gotten started. They look impressive as well. Big time win on the road at UCF. Also starting the season off right against Lipscomb. This team is going to be exciting to watch. So I can't wait to talk to you about that too. So until next time, peace. Anchor down.